This video is brought to you by Grainger Warranty, your #1 online source for factory-backed extended warranties in the country.
Today, Jen and I are driving the 2025 BMW X5 xDrive 40i. It's a long name.
It is a long name, but you nailed it. And this is a special one for me because the X5 has been a dream SUV for many years. So is it going to hold up to my standards and my thoughts, or is this a classic case of don't meet your heroes?
Got to find out. Now, the BMW X5 has been around since 1999, and it's in its 4th generation for a while now, ever since, what, 2020?
Yeah, and 2020 was actually when they had the first X5M comp, which is my absolute dream X5, but I also have to come down to reality because that is not a very affordable SUV.
But like a lot of the consumers for this vehicle, the X5M and the comp, that might get you into the door, but a lot of people are going to end up leaving with a more typical model like what we have here with a 3-liter straight six.
Right, exactly. You know, the first gen M5 or X5 had a manual option.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
What was that?
Obviously, that's been long gone.
Long gone, but surely very missed.
Yeah, but still, acceleration is pretty good with this powertrain.
5.3 seconds ain't too shabby.
Yeah, 5.3 seconds to 60 in this setup. Really not bad power. Sounds pretty decent. You get the induction noise of a straight six, which is very BMW. It's a very smooth powertrain. So really no major complaints there.
No, not at all. I will say my love for the X5 kind of started with the 3rd gen.
Yeah.
And that was the one that I wanted, the pewter with this cognac interior, and that was just absolutely gorgeous. And that's one where I think I could probably try and find an X5M.
Yeah.
A little bit older though.
Exactly, after a little bit of depreciation. This though, you can see those generations of refinement. This is a very comfortable, well-behaved vehicle. It's nice and quiet on the inside. It's got a very compliant ride quality. They're also pretty good handling SUVs. We don't have an incredibly good road to demonstrate that here on the foothills of Colorado in the mountains. But still, these are really great all-arounders. Yeah,
it feels incredible to drive. I feel like I have all the power beneath my feet, and like you said, the handling is very smooth, very responsive. Quite pleased with how this drives, for certain.
Now, what do we got under the hood, Jen?
Well, I am actually quite familiar with this because it's pretty much the same engine that's in my F30 335xi. We've got a 3-liter turbocharged inline 6 made up to an 8-speed auto.
And if I remember right, 375 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque.
Absolutely, you are correct, sir.
And it's also paired up with a mild hybrid system. So it's a pretty sophisticated powertrain and pretty decent power output.
Which is, what you would expect from a, fancy German engineered vehicle, right? If you plan on keeping a car like this past its original warranty, consider an extended warranty with Grainger Warranty. You can save up to $1,000. Take it to any appropriate dealer. They'll fix up your ride with manufactured parts. Go to GraingerWarranty.com, get yourself some peace of mind for the ride you love. Case, this is actually very similar to the exact spec I would get on my dream X5. Now, I always liked the pewter paint with a cognac tan interior, but this is lime rock gray, which is not necessarily pewter, but it almost gives like a solid non-metallic look from far away, but as you get closer, there is that little flake inside.
I actually think it's a really good color. It's got little hues of maybe green in it, so it looks a bit unique, and it's understated, and I like it mixed in with some of these black elements and some of these aluminum finish elements for a little bit of contrast. It's a good looking car all around, but I think we got to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, and that's when you first start looking at the Monroney for this car and all of the options it has. Really not a ton of individual options, but the base car starts at $68,000 and we have a $10,000 off-road package. And it's kind of interesting looking at the line items for this off-road package. We've got carbon fiber trim.
Yep, totally need that to off-road.
extended shadow line trim. I'm not actually sure what that means. We've got Harman Kardon surround sound audio. We've got heated armrests, an illuminated grille. Not necessary, I would say, for off-roading. We do have a few things like an M Sport differential, which is probably good for traction. We do have air suspension. We've also got 20-inch wheels, which is a little bit of an interesting decision on an off-road package.
And also what's interesting is what's wrapped around those wheels. We've got General Grabber AT3s, which is generally known as a Tier 2 tire. And I kind of would have expected a top tier tire on a BMW, such as like the BFG KO2s or Toyota Country 3s.
And the other interesting thing about it is that it is a very aggressive tire for a vehicle in this segment and what it competes against. But on an off-road trim, rather than a 20-inch wheel, I would have loved to see an 18 or something that would give us at least a little bit more sidewall.
Yeah, off-road means smaller wheel, more tire.
Yeah, the sidewall, always helpful.
Ridiculous.
The other interesting thing is that if you look at this package as a whole, to me, this almost looks like somebody bought just a standard X5 and then went to the tire shop and got a more aggressive tire. It doesn't feel like an entire off-road package that's cohesive.
Right. You know, in a lot of off-road options, you're going to see recovery hooks. A lot of times they'll be big, bright, and red, and to show it's off-road.
Yeah, and some extra skid plates.
Yeah, I don't see anything like this here.
Tell you one thing that I do actually really appreciate, though, is if we come around to the rear, you see a couple cutouts for exhaust, and if you get low enough, that is actually what they are. So it's not a fake setup for the exhaust. Then we've got our hitch back here, which is also part of the off-road package, so you could use this as a recovery point as well. And this is rated to tow 6,600 pounds, which is really not bad.
Well, Case, the first thing I'm noticing is this huge curved display that takes up like 2/3 of the dash.
Yeah, and looks really sharp, really high resolution. It's actually pretty nice to use. It's all set up with Apple CarPlay. You can also do Android Auto.
Yep.
And this is what, a 14.9?
14.9, 12.3 inch cluster too.
Yeah, so very big, high-tech, high-resolution, good screens. We've also got a couple other good things in this interior, like you mentioned briefly, the cognac on the seats.
Just delightful.
This color, especially with a little bit of contrast, you got the black dash and you've got some black elements on the door cards too. The colors in this interior are over the top good.
Absolutely. Now, here's that carbon fiber trim that's going to help you off-road.
Going off-road,
yep.
Naturally. And there's a few things on the interior that are not as much our favorites. So, like a lot of vehicles these days, if you want to go in and adjust your climate, you have to bring that up on the center screen. I'm not saying that this is unusual or anything, but we do like having hard buttons for your climate because it's something that you use pretty frequently. So it's just kind of nice to have a dedicated location for it and dedicated button. But they do have some hard controls for our stereo, which is nice.
I've got a gripe with this because I already have these options on my steering wheel. I would have been so much more happy with climate control options right here, just like they have continued it with defrost options over here. Why couldn't we have some climate control options with physical buttons?
Or like dedicated buttons for your heated seats or something along those lines. Another interesting thing here is that, as we can see, we do have heated seats. You've got a heated steering wheel and even a heated armrest like we saw as part of the off-road package.
Right. And you can adjust the whether you want this really low heat or high heat. And it's working.
There's one thing that we don't have. It's a ventilated seat.
And which is weird because these have this beautiful perforation in it. And jumping in at first thought, I'm thinking it's definitely got to have ventilation seats.
Yeah.
Nay, it doesn't.
Apparently not.
No option to have it either, at least in the xDrive 40i.
Yeah, and then here at the bottom of the console, we've got a few other things. We've got our control for the air suspension that's built in right there. We have our wheel to navigate through the screen if you don't want to use it as a touch screen. We've got our drive selector, which is a little interesting. It's kind of a thin paddle. And then we've got a few drive modes and our start-stop.
One thing I am super pleased to see, because I don't have this in my F30, is the unlock and lock buttons right here on the door. In my car, it's actually located in the center of the dash. So anytime you have to unlock your car or lock it, you have to stick half of your body inside the car to press that button. They're not on the doors at all, and it drives me wild. So I am so happy to see that they put this back on the door. I know they've done that for a while, since 2015, but I feel like I'm just a little traumatized from my lock and unlock button. So Case, I know we've talked about this $10,000 off-road package quite a lot, because I mean that is definitely something worth noting, but it says 2 other packages, one of which is the $900 parking assist package. That's going to give you active park distance control, parking assistant professional, and what I really like is the surround view with the 3D view as far as your camera angles. So that is something else I like. The other option this has is the special edition package, because Case, this is the 25 years silver anniversary edition of the X5.
Yeah, and we have a couple cool plaques to represent that, so it's nice. I'm not sure, the parking assistance stuff, if that's anything that I would spec, and the camera views are nice to have, but really visibility from the driver's seat, now that I'm in it, is not bad at all. I can see over the hood very well. This doesn't have one of the really tall boxy hoods that a lot of modern SUVs have that make it a little difficult to see what's directly in front of you. Same thing out the sides, everywhere. I can see out of this vehicle really well, which makes it easy to drive. This is a very friendly, approachable vehicle to get into and go down the road on, despite the fact that it is slightly on the larger side.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not sure that this is an especially difficult SUV to park, but it is a really nice one to drive. And I think that's one area where, unsurprisingly, in this high-end BMW, it does not disappoint. It is a very nice driving SUV.
It's definitely one of the biggest pros that it has in its column. Jump into the back case. It is very roomy, as you would expect for this type of SUV, but I've noticed that they've continued with their old school dials back here. You do have technically climate control functions. You do have this temperature wheel here, which is what they'll put in even the front. I have this in my car. I have dual zone climate control in my car, but that will be in the front to dial in whether you want it to be a hot 74 or a cold 74. But they've kept this old school dial in the back, which is weird considering they've gone with screens and everything for technology in the front, but very analog in the back.
Yeah, which feels like a little bit of a disconnect, because sliders like that to me speak a little bit 1990s when all the controls up front are all digital. And look, that's kind of that's not necessarily a big deal of a critique, but when you're looking at a car that's in the price range of what we're dealing with here, those are the kinds of things that start to stand out to you. But other things that stand out are, once again, nice materials, nice colors. It's nice and two-tone. Still really love the color of the seats back here. And then you've got a pretty interesting center console and cup holder design next to you.
Yeah, this is the most German over-engineered cup holder, right? This is how they always want to do cup holders, just absolutely over-engineered. But one thing I do kind of like is this has adjustable clicks if in case you've got a smaller can or anything in there. Of course, why would you need that? I don't know, but you've got it in the X5. And then down here, you've got a little cubby to keep things like your diary, or whatever else you want to put in there. It's a very shallow cubby, but in either case, it is comfortable. You do have tons of charging locations. We've got 2 USB-C ports at the bottom, and then in the back of each seat, there's actually another USB-C port. So that is nice to have. A couple extra little cubbies here. Don't know what you would put in there. Trinkets, Skittles, not exactly sure. And then a couple nice little pockets behind the seats themselves. But Case, one thing that I am just so disappointed by, no rear heated seats.
Yeah, which again, at the price point is something that, like ventilated seats in the front, I would kind of expect.
Yeah.
But it's not here. One thing that you do have though is pretty good space. The headroom and the legroom are all really great in this car. No problems there.
Now Case, one thing I've always loved about the X5 is the split. Go ahead and pop that down for me.
Yeah, I do as well. Having the split tailgate is a pretty nice feature. It gives you a place to sit.
Yeah.
and it's just kind of a cool operation. And then opening up, we've got a decent size rear cargo area, nothing too crazy going on back here, but underneath the car, we don't notice any spare down there. And if we pop this open, a little bit of extra space, but I don't even see a repair kit.
Yeah, and normally with BMW, they provide run flat tires. However, this has that fancy $10,000 off-road package, which gave us those General Grabber ATs. However, those are not run flats. So I would have at least expected some sort of repair kit, or especially if it is an off-road package, an actual spare to begin with, which is definitely what you want when you're off-roading. But in this case, I feel like this was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, if you're on a trail, definitely a full-size spare is going to be the most helpful thing. But also when we close this up, this is all power. So I really like the tailgate action. It just would be nice if we had a legitimate spare.
Yeah.
So Jen, we have to talk about price on this car because it's been one of the major elements of how we're judging this vehicle.
Absolutely. So this price out with all of its options is $81,075, which is, like I said, not very cheap.
No, it's definitely not inexpensive, which is how you kind of have to shape the lens through which you're going to view and critique this car. With all that in mind, what do you think, this being one of your dream vehicles and now that you've gotten behind the wheel of this one?
I feel, I hate to say it, a little disappointed. You know, and sure, I might be kind of zoning in on some features that shouldn't be necessarily a deal breaker, like ventilation in the seats or rear heated seats. But like I said, for this price point, those are kind of some features I should expect.
Yeah,
you know, over 80 grand,
high.
That's a lot. But with that said, it does drive beautifully. It handles beautifully. May not be as tight as its competitors like, you know, Audi or Genesis, but it still is a beautiful interior. No, I don't like the touchscreen, you know, controls and everything, but it still has a wonderful driving experience. I'm just a little disappointed at how much BMW wants to nickel and dime you at the end of the day.
Yeah, there is some stuff that I agree I wish would come standard on this car. There are ways that you could spec this vehicle that would make it address a lot of our concerns. The way that this particular one is optioned would not be my personal choice. And aside from some of those features being things that I would like to see standard, this still is a good vehicle that drives well. We're not gonna push it very hard off-road at any point just because of some of the shortcomings that we've seen with this particular off-road package. But even so, these tires are still pretty nice to have in the snow. So there's pros and cons with it, but at this price point, there's a few more things that I agree I'd like to see.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this was don't meet your heroes situation, unfortunately.
That's all for this video. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next.